Hey, what's up, guys? Another astrology video for you. First one in a while. I will catch up with my sun sign series in due time. But for now, today, I want to talk about one of the main misconceptions uh, when it comes to house rulership and how to interpret the significations of one of the houses in astrology. It's often said that the first house is the Aries house, the sixth house is the Virgo house, and that if you have a planet in one of these houses, that planet is going to carry a lot of significations of that sign, even if your house uh, in your chart is not in that sign. If your first house is in Taurus rather than Aries, or Pisces rather than Virgo. I would like to actually put that to rest. You should not ever marry the first house with Aries, the sixth house in Virgo, with Virgo, and so on and so forth, unless you actually have those signs in those houses. It is going to do you nothing but cause you confusion, because you need to be interpreting that particular house in accordance with the sign that it is in. Now, obviously, the sixth house and Virgo do have a few overlapping significations, some things in common. The sixth house is the area of life concerned with work and physical health and details and organization and routine. And Virgo is a sign, it's a style of personality which places a lot of value on that, right? But if you don't have any planets in Virgo or any planets in the sixth house, then you're probably not going to be a very detail-oriented person. And you're probably not going to be much of a micromanager, as Virgos tend to be. And so you want to look at each particular house in terms of the sign that it is actually in your chart, because in truth there is no actual connection between Virgo and the sixth house. In reality, the sixth house is not in Virgo any more often than it is in Pisces or Aquarius or Aries, okay, or any other sign. It's in that sign literally a 12th of the time, no more, no less, okay? And another one of the main reasons you don't want to marry the signs or the houses with their signs of rulership is because there's no actual connection between the signs and the houses. And it's actually the same thing when you're talking about rulerships of particular planets. So, I have my sixth house in Cancer. The ruler of my sixth house is the moon, because that is the natural ruler of Cancer. Not Mercury, which is the Virgo ruled planet, and not anything else. But in truth, I would actually curb your emphasis that you place on planetary rulerships as well, before, or at least until you really get familiar with what each of the signs and each of the houses mean. So if you marry the first house with Aries, then essentially, and every time you talk about the first house, you use Aries terminology, what you're going to do is limit your understanding of what a sign is and what a house is more generally. And just to remind you, a sign is a style, an archetypal style of expression that is applied to a planet, which represents a part of your psyche, a part of your perception and expression, right? So the sign that a particular planet is in, say Mercury, is going to tell you about the style in which you communicate and express yourself through language, all right? Through outward prefrontal cortex expression, okay? A house, by contrast, is external to you. It has nothing to do necessarily with your innate perception. It is an external area of life, through which any planets in that house are most prominently and most strongly expressed. All right? The sign that any particular house is in, especially the cusp, you want to look at the cusp first, gives you a mode of perception for that area of life, right? So since my 6th house cusp is in Cancer, I have a Cancerian perception for the things of the 6th house. So work, routine, taking care of my health, my hygiene, any pets, any dependents, any subordinates that I may have, right? I have a Cancerian way of dealing with those things, right? If you have Scorpio on your midheaven or Scorpio on your 10th house cusp, you're going to have a very scorpionic way of perceiving and striving toward the peak of your mountain of purpose in life, right? You can have a scorpionic way of attacking career opportunities and striving toward your purpose and your fulfillment, right? But you don't want to necessarily marry Capricorn with the 10th house as it's traditionally associated, because if you do not have Capricorn on your 10th house cusp or anywhere in your 10th house, right, in a quadrant house system, say, whole sign system, one sign fills an entire house, that's different. If that's your style, that's your style. If that's your house system you like, that's the house system you like. That's cool, all right? But do not ever marry Aries with the 1st house, Aquarius with the 11th house. It's going to do nothing but confuse you regarding what a sign means versus what a particular house means, right? Interpret your chart as it actually is. Interpret other people's charts as they actually are, and only then will you have that separation between the signs and the houses that's necessary for you to see the patterns that will allow you to understand what those things actually mean in and of themselves. You have to take each thing on its own and then see the patterns from chart to chart that you interpret so that you can really understand the signs on the whole, the houses on the whole. So don't make connections where they don't actually exist, i.e. Aries and the 1st house, if that is not how your chart is. So just a general misconception about house rulership. Your 7th house is ruled by whichever actual sign is on the 7th house cusp and or fills most of your 7th house in a quadrant house system. So there you go on a misinterpretation of, or a misconception of house rulerships. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers.